Welcome back. This is another episode of the Tim Boxeo Show. As always, we are going to give you a disclaimer at the beginning because this is not your average boxing podcast. If you came to hear a discussion on the legendary performance from Nonito Donaire this past weekend, as much as I would love to talk about that, I may even try to get Tim to say a word or two on that. But that's not the type of thing we talk about on this podcast. We talk about really world boxing on the whole, club boxing, the cracks, the crevices, the good, the bad, the ugly, the dangerous, the everything in between. So if that is something that you're into, you are in the right spot. And if that's not what you're here for, you want to hear about Nonito Donaire, cool. There are plenty of boxing podcasts out there that cover all of those subjects. Check them out. You could even message Tim, who listens to those podcasts, and ask him, Tim, what podcast do you recommend to me? And he'll tell you. But for club boxing, you are in the right spot. All right. So I've mentioned him twice. Let me tell you that we have Tim Boxeo here. This is his podcast. He is a TC Boxing Hall of Famer. We've just had a very long conversation on TC Boxing. He is probably in boxing the best follow on Twitter. He is the guy that champions all these little small cards. We've got people dying to get on this podcast and talk directly to the man himself, and that is Tim Boxeo. So, Tim, how was your weekend?
Good. How's it going, Angelo? It was good. It was lots of stuff this past weekend. It felt like a slow one going into it, but turned out it was some really good actions. Even busier weekend coming up. So it was good, man. What about you?
It was pretty cool. We had a holiday here in the United States. I think that was nice. If you had the day off of work, and if you didn't, man, sorry.
Yeah, we did too. It was good, man. Just chilled. Give some more time to get the schedule ready for the coming weekend.
Yeah.
Which is a labor in and of itself. So yeah, man.
Tell me about it. Well, I mean, I don't have the level of work. We do a lot of similar things in boxing, but you do it on a level that I am not even playing at. And there's a reason why you are known the way you are, and I am not. Anyway, my name's Angelo. I'm the host here. I'll be asking the questions here and interjecting a couple of things, but for the most part, this is the Tim Boxeo podcast. So, Tim, you told me that we have a story of the week. You didn't tell me what it was. I usually know everything that you're going to say. And you're like, no, I'm not telling you. So I'm really curious. What do you have as the story of the week?
This is incredible. I've been so excited to talk about this. I did some fact checking today. Reached out to some fighters to verify some things. And Angelo, this weekend, Saturday, we have the heavyweight champion of the world in action in Georgia, live on pay-per-view. Now, you, Angelo, of course, you have mentioned the show before. You host a very successful podcast of your own, and shall we say maybe mainstream podcast would be a good way to say it, mainstream boxing podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And this heavyweight champion is so important that y'all even covered his last fight on your podcast, believe it or not. That was just about 3 short months ago. And I'm sure at this point,
where are we going with
the
this?
suspense is killing you. And I am, in fact, talking about the heavyweight title defense of the American Boxing Federation Continental America's title with Roberto Thomas, the Bully White. It is, in fact,
What?
Roberto White Fight Week.
Wait.
In Georgia.
This vaguely rings a bell. I don't fully remember. Why did we talk about this?
Okay, so let me give you a couple of nuggets. The second nugget is why you talked about it. So interestingly enough, Mr. White has fought for this American Boxing Federation Continental America's title in both of his last 2 fights. Both times they were vacant for some reason. I'm not sure why, but he holds the belt. He has a record of 19, 12, and 3, 19 wins by knockout. His 12 losses, unfortunately, 10 of them by knockout.
All right.
But the reason why you talked about him on your podcast is y'all went down a rabbit hole. And interestingly enough, this fight this weekend will take place just a month shy of Roberto White's 51st birthday. And that's the rabbit hole y'all went down on your podcast. It's just how old are some of the oldest active fighters right now.
Okay, so he is in my history. I'm looking at my browser. He is in my history. Roberto Thomas White. Why did we talk about this guy?
So that's one point. So let me tell you a little bit more. White will be White in his well, let me skip around a little bit. I'll tell you who he's fighting here in a second. On his last fight, which was in March, it was actually a pay-per-view as well. I dropped something like $20 on it, and he fought a heavyweight from Mexico in his last fight by the name heavyweight / featherweight, and I'll expand on that in a second. And that's why you talked about it as well. A gentleman by the name of Carlos Yanez, who at the time was 23-4 with 19 knockouts. And I say heavyweight / featherweight because Yanez turned pro as a 118-pound bantamweight back in 2004. He fought almost exclusively in Mexicali and actually, built up a pretty nice record. Won a handful of different Mexican titles, and two fights before he retired, actually won the Mexican title at featherweight, and then retired in 2011. So he was coming back in October of 2020 to fight Roberto White at heavyweight after retiring as a featherweight in 2011, and came back into that fight versus White at 290 pounds, unfortunately, for Mr. Yanez.
Well, I mean, speak for yourself there. I don't know. Maybe that is fortunate for him.
So the combination of 51-year-old Mr. White and 290-pound Mr. Yanez, who retired as a featherweight, somehow or another, y'all ended up in that rabbit hole. But the King is back this weekend.
I remember talking about this, and I if I remember correctly, we went down a rabbit hole of like just talking nonsense, and then we just uncontrollably were laughing at this whole situation between White and Yanez. I think probably I got the idea from your Twitter, but like I was kind of ignorant to the situation, and then once I started to Google it and see all the little nuggets here of details which make this a humorous situation, I think that's what happened. But yeah, I mean, shout out to Roberto, 50 years old.
Yeah, I mean, you got to respect the grind. The guy, like I said, is about to turn 51, and he had kind of a nondescript start in the sport when he turned pro, not as far back as you think, actually, 2007. So came into the game late, had a pretty bumpy road. But then, as all smart men in boxing do, realized he was going to fix his sights on Tijuana. And so from 2011 to 2018, after losing 11 of 12 fights, he's basically on a 17-fight undefeated streak. There's 3 draws mixed in there, with a significant portion of those fights being held in Tijuana at the legendary Cheers bar. We've talked about Cheers on a previous episode. Roberto White's a big man, southpaw, 6'3", comes in consistently lately about 260, although he's come in as high as almost 300 late in 2019. Like I said, he fought Yanez, and I've got some breaking news here on the pod, because if you look up Roberto White on BoxRec now, it says to be announced, I believe, as his opponent. So breaking news, I did talk to the King today, at least message-wise, and he confirmed with me that he will be facing 23-year-old Derek Saul El Vikingo Cardenas Perez. El Vikingo Cardenas Perez, who, get this, is a regular at Big Punch Arena.
Wait, you know who he is?
Yeah, I do. So I actually watched his last fight in March down at Big Punch, and I went back and watched it again here today in preparation for the show. Cardenas Perez El Vikingo is 8-7, 8 wins by knockout, 4 of his losses by knockout. You can see his record on the link that I just sent over to you, Angelo.
Mm-hmm.
I've also got, for anybody looking, the links are in the show notes as well of these two guys, as well as the Stanza link if you want to purchase the pay-per-view. Like I said, he's fought almost exclusively in Mexico. You know, the thing that would be concerning for me if I was Roberto White is Cardenas Perez is only 23 years old. I mentioned that a second ago. But in his last fight here in March, he fought the BoxRec #1 rated fighter in Mexico by the name of Elvis Garcia Munoz. BoxRec has it listed as a corner retirement in the 3rd round, but actually El Vikingo got knocked out in the first about 10 seconds. Well, a TKO, the ref jumped in. But the biggest thing that I took away is that for about a 6'1"-ish, 6-foot guy, he weighs in the neighborhood of 240, 250 pounds. Moves really well. Moves well for a big fella. And he took some massive shots from Munoz. And just, never went down. Never really looked like he was hurt. The stoppage kind of came more of, I can't believe this guy's taking these types of shots, punishment type of a stoppage. So the fact that Munoz could not wobble Perez, if I were Roberto White, I'd be a little bit concerned at his age and activity rate because, Angela, I think I remember you saying you might have watched the clip, and I'll refresh your memory. I mean, in his last fight against Yanez that we just mentioned, and I'm talking about Roberto White now, in his last fight against Carlos Yanez, it was a hell of an entertaining fight. I mean, these guys just both let their hands go, and, on the club level, when that happens, typically it gets a little sloppy, especially with featherweights, and that kind of happened here. But it made for a really entertaining fight. But in like the 3rd and 4th round, it looked like one of the guys was just going to get TKO'd by straight exhaustion. And I think that's what kept Yanez in the corner at the end of 4 because Roberto White got an RTD4 victory in that fight. And he is going to have to come in shape and be busy and land some power shots. And I did confirm with El Vikingo through messaging today as well that he did accept the fight in Georgia. And he said, appreciated the kind words and said, we will give it our best shot.
That's a man who knows what his job is in boxing.
Yeah. So it's super cool, man. El Vikingo is a regular in Mexicali, Tijuana. Listeners and friends of our show will know a name. El Vikingo turned pro in 2017, turned pro against another Mexican heavyweight that's starting to get some steam in Tijuana by the name of Brian Ezel Guzman, who goes by the nickname of Tortas, which is a spectacular Mexican Hispanic nickname.
Yeah,
and a pretty good little fighter in and of himself. And they were debutantes, fought back in 2017, and that's when El Vikingo turned pro. But anyway, should be huge. So let me close with this. On a scale of Emmanuel to go to Bud Crawford, how excited are you for this fight, Angelo?
I don't know if excited is the word that I would use. I am oddly compelled by just what this will look like, especially when you have a damn near 51-year-old guy who's possibly the best heavyweight in the world at this level. That is pretty compelling to me. I'm not expecting anything major here. I'm not expecting to walk away impressed, other than maybe like impressed, like, damn, that guy's 51 and still doing that. But I just remember having a lot of fun talking about Roberto White in what was like just a series of opening doors and saying things that you didn't expect to see. How can people watch this?
Yeah, I have the link in the show notes. It's a pay-per-view for independent pay-per-view level show for $20. Couple other good fighters on the show. Honestly, it'll be really entertaining if you're willing to part with your 20 spot. I think it'll be a good show. The last one with White headlining, I got a lot of entertainment out of it. It was really fun show to watch. And as I told the man over messaging today, I just respect the grind. I mean, we talked about this about Lovejoy. You know, it's somewhat to the same level in that this guy at 51 years old, you can laugh at the American Boxing Federation Continental America's title all you want, but guy's 51, a heavyweight. He's active as hell, and he's still getting main event slots on club shows in Georgia, which isn't an awful fight state in the United States. So I respect the grind, man. Anybody that can get in the ring and at 51 and be prepared to go 12 rounds. Hopefully, he's prepared to go 12 rounds. I'm all for that guy.
I don't think they fight 12 rounds at this level.
Yeah,
it shouldn't be allowed.
Yeah, maybe it only is 10 either way. But that's the story of the week. I put probably the fight I'm most excited about this weekend in the story of the week, just because I didn't want to wait till the end of the show to talk about it. So there we go.
All right. What about? Let's look back a little bit. Were there any good fights that we might have missed out on this past weekend?
Yes, I'm going to tell you about two, and they both may have slipped under the radar for most people listening, and they both are ones that I'm going to document as club level dramatic fights of the year. So on a club level, I keep a list of what I call dramatic fights of the year, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be spectacular action or for a belt or a title or anything like that. But if it's at that level and provides a lot of excitement, I like to document it and put links to the fights and keep that tally for the year. And we had this Saturday, Marzo Francella, 9-0-1 versus Celso Neves, 7-1-1. They went 10 rounds for a Swiss super middleweight title live on YouTube. Switzerland. Yeah, it was awesome. So the first thing I see when I tune into the Switzerland live stream is exactly what you think you would see when you tune in for a Switzerland live stream. They had a beautiful ring. It looked like it had never been used. And considering the amount of activity out of Switzerland, maybe it was never used. And the hall looked like a hotel conference, a big hotel conference center that was as sterile as could be. Like there was nothing on the walls. It was pristine. So in my head, I thought this is what Switzerland boxing should look like, right? Clean, beautiful. Both fighters looked to be in great shape. I'm like, we're already off to a great start. So Francella, like I said, 9-0-1, 32 years old, and Neves is a Portuguese fighter, but now living in, which even makes it even cooler. I don't know how many Portuguese fighters do you know of living in Switzerland. Francella had quite a bit of local following and support. Was evident right even before the opening bell, chanting his name. It was a pretty good atmosphere for a little tiny small hall show. It didn't look like they had a lot of people were allowed in. And these guys apparently knew each other because I did some research on the fight after I watched it, and they were teammates in the amateur world coming up. And Neves, a fighter that had a pedigree where in a world tournament in London back in 2017, he actually medaled. So a little bit of amateur background for both of these guys, but neither one of them at this point, both just under 10 or so fights, really had fought anyone of significance. Probably the only name that pops out on either ledger is a German fighter by the name of Alexander Regas, who I think built up to about 14-0 before he took a loss here within the last 6 months or so.
That name does ring a bell?
Yeah, he's pretty popular, at least on the club plus level over in Germany, Regas. So I could tell you, the opening bell lands, and it's immediately apparent that Neves, who is from north west Switzerland, this fight is being held in southern Switzerland, where Francella is from. Neves is coming forward and landing shots that are like backing up Marzo right away. And Marzo doesn't really look hurt, but you know how when you see those shots land and you normally see it with a fighter that's got long hair or something, and the head just kind of goes back like a peasant's pencil, and you're like,
Right.
holy shit, like this guy's getting tagged. And but the crowd was firmly behind Marzo, but Neves just kept coming forward, providing aggression, going to the head and body. Pretty nice little, a nice fighter. I was impressed with him, and he drops Francella in the second round, and this convention hall just goes quiet, right? Like it's it's like the road fighter getting, and I suppose he was a road fighter, but to me they were both Swiss fighters. But the crowd was very much behind Marzo Francella, and in the third comes forward, Neves knocks Francella down again, this time with an uppercut. The other one in the second round was just kind of accumulation of shots. But credit to Francella, he just kept fighting his ass off. I would say he probably won the fourth and fifth rounds. 6 and 7 were pretty action packed. And then out comes Neves in the eighth, steps on the gas pedal, pressure coming forward, lands a big counter left about a minute in. Francella goes down pretty hard, gets up right away, but just kind of does the drunken sailor walking around, and immediately the ref waves it off, and I think rightly so. And so the road fighter, in this case, although it's both in Switzerland, takes the win, and Neves gets the vacant Swiss super middleweight title. Nice little fighter. Be looking forward to seeing him fight again. I was impressed with him at this level. I think he did a really nice job, and I have the YouTube link in the show notes, and if you get a chance to watch it, I think you'd really enjoy it. This was a fun fight. Good stuff.
How did you hear about this fight? How did you know it was coming up?
Just making the schedule, and then a friend of mine on Twitter messaged me. He goes by Warwick on Twitter, a friend of mine from Poland. He has a knack too of finding some more obscure stuff, and pointed me to a couple of Instagram accounts that were messaging about posting this live link, and on fight day they did. So I added the link, and then just happened to turn it on right as the main event was coming, so it just fell into my lap. It was great, man. I'm glad I watched it.
There was another fight that I saw you tweeting about, and even though I know we talked about it, it completely had left my mind. And then on fight day, I saw a lot of activity on Twitter for this fight, and that was the Jongo one.
Yeah. You know what? I look back and I laugh to myself at our conversation. I guess it just shows, you know, I'm kind of a nerd on some things, a nerd on most things, but specifically Jongo. Like most people looking at this fight were interested in the 40-year-old Nigerian, right? Duradola.
Yeah. That's been a dude
God's
out there for a
power.
long time. Yeah, with the incredible name that fits his like whole fighting persona.
Yeah. So that match was made, and we briefly talked about it last week, and I brought up Jongo. And then someone messaged me, and they're like, dude, Jongo is fighting Duradola. Why didn't you mention Duradola? I'm like, because I love Jongo. Like there was just no sway me on that like that. So this was a 12-round cruiserweight fight for Duradola's ABU cruiserweight title, African Boxing Union. And it was live and free on Fight TV. And it was a highly produced show. I mean, this thing was as well produced as anything you'd see on DAZN, ESPN, PBC. I mean, it was a really solid show to view as a fan. And like you mentioned, yeah, Duradola is someone probably mostly known for his two fights with Dmitry Kudryashov. And those were two wars. I think another friend of mine messaged me and goes, how much do I have to pay to see that third, or how much do we have to crowdsource to make that third fight between him and Kudryashov? That would be, especially at Dimitri's age now, and I think that would be fantastic. But
Oh,
anyway, you know what's cool when you look at Duradola's record? And I traded messages with a friend of mine about some of the details here. And the interesting thing about it to me is Duradola, even though he's Nigerian, started his first 18 months in the program, in the pro game, in the Midwest club circuit, of all places. That really surprised me. I guess I never really looked that deep into his professional record before. So it really shocked me when I read that, and I messaged Mike Altamura in Australia because I know that Mike had been involved with Duradola in getting him some fights in Ghana, and he, yeah, basically confirmed for me that, hey, the guy that was invested in Duradola at that time, that was what they wanted to do, build him up on the U.S. Midwest club circuit, and that's about as best place to build up a heavyweight, cruiserweight, big guy, or any fighter for that matter. Equal that of Tijuana in some folks' minds, I might imagine. And yeah, so he did that. He's fought some pretty big names, Miris Bradis, Maxim Vlasov, um, Vlodarchek out of Poland, most recently Junior Makabu. So Duradola has been in with a lot of people. So now we get to my guy, Jongo Jongo. You might not be as familiar. He goes by Shaban Jongo Jongo. I saw him for the first time as a cruiserweight, but then immediately saw him in a fight just over the heavyweight limit. A rough, bruising fighter. I've seen him like 4 times now. Like, he does not have the technical skill as Duradola. And I know there's a joke to be made there that maybe Duradola doesn't have the technical skill either. But nonetheless, when you compare the two, Jongo Jongo is a little more rough around the edges. But this guy is a hard man. I mean, the second time I watched him, and I have a link to the knockout in the show notes, he beat a Tanzanian heavyweight first name is Alphonse, who's a pretty big, rough guy, and Jongo Jongo knocked him out with a great, like a club KO of the month for me last year knockout. So there was a huge buzz, relatively speaking, in our Tim Boxeo Discord going into this fight, and it did not disappoint. Like, after the fight, I'll just share this little teaser before I tell you about it. After the fight, 2 of my friends messaged him like, "That is a legitimate fight of the year." And I do have a link. I do have a link to the fight in the show notes too, if you want to go back and watch it. And I responded that, got more mainstream boxing fans or boxing fans that rate things like this. I typically don't, because to me, it's just all entertainment. But the ones that rate things like this, take things into account like skill level and titles and things of that nature. And skill level here was at a level that I don't think most boxing fans would agree that this would fit into a fight of the year argument. But it was a hell of a fight. Now, I think Jongo Jongo, in my mind, looked at this fight with Duradola 2 ways, right? Because looking at Duradola's experience, you can do Duradola 1 of 2 ways. You can either take him to deep water and drown him, right? Because he's proven technically he's got a lot of flaws. His stamina isn't great. He's gassed out in fights and got knocked out. But I think he has more technical ability than Jongo Jongo. Plus, God, the guy's nickname is God's Power. So you're kind of playing with fire in that one. So I think Jongo Jongo took plan B, which was he was just going to do what he does best and just rough the hell up Duradola. And he did. I mean, right from the jump, he just smothered Duradola and there must have been 12 headbutt attempts in the first 90 seconds. Like, he was going to let Duradola know that he was there, and he was throwing haymakers. Unfortunately, because of how big both guys are, and Duradola is bigger than Jongo Jongo from a length and reach perspective. Jongo Jongo was smothering a lot of his own punches inside, but that didn't bother him because he had his third fist and he was using it and caught really early on in the fight, Duradora caught Jongo, probably like 30 seconds in, and kind of staggered him. And the warrior that he is, Jongo just kept going forward and letting his hands go. And there was a lot of clinches, a lot of headbutts, but entertaining clinches because they'd fight in the clinch, fight out of the clinch. And then about 30 seconds or so left in the first round. And this thing, I mean, the Discord messages and chatter is going crazy at this point. Jongo finally clips Duradola with a really good headbutt and gives him a real nice cut over his left eye. And the Discord explodes. People are like, oh my gosh, it's been so entertaining to this point. This fight's going to end to a cut, and it's going to be a no contest at the end of the first round. And what was really strange was the ref calls time, brings Duradola over to the corner to have his cut looked at. And the cut's looked at, he's deemed okay to continue. And again, the cut happened with about 25 seconds left in the round. And then the round ends. So I guess the ref didn't call timeout and the timekeeper didn't think anything else of it.
Yeah, I noticed
so
that too. The time kept ticking.
Yeah. Yeah. So the round ends. They're like, oh, what the hell? Go to your stools. So they do. And, so that was great. As if this thing wasn't going fantastic already. It's now really reaching mythical status as far as the Discord goes. And round 2 starts exactly the same way. I mean, I don't think there was a jab thrown in this fight whatsoever.
Don't think so.
In the first 60 seconds, Jongo really starts doing damage to the point where the announcers, one of them was Tanzanian and the other was actually the promoter of Global Sports. Yeah, the promoter
pulling a Vince
of
McMahon
Global.
there.
Yep, exactly. Global Sports was the promoter, was the announcer. He's like, listen, Duradola is in serious trouble here. Big trouble. And Jongo starts pushing Duradola back to the ropes. And the old pro uses just a great move, using Jongo's aggression against him, kind of takes a step back, slightly off the ropes, and lands a clean overhand right that clips Jongo kind of near the temple, the top of the head area. And if you're listening to this show, you know what kind of trouble that signifies. And he goes hurling forward and lands like in between the top rope and the second rope, and just kind of hangs there for a second and just falls flat on his face. Tries to get up, probably too quick, but it was such a hard knockdown that he probably didn't know any better. And as soon as he gets up, just starts backpedaling and then falls backwards on his back. A referee immediately calls the halt to things. And you could tell Duradola was pissed the way Jongo was fighting, because he kind of stepped forward to him as the ref was waving it off and didn't really do a throat slash, but kind of like take that, mother effer, And that was the end of it. And the Discord exploded. I mean, I think my friend Corey Erdman, if I'm not mistaken, took a screenshot on my Twitter and posted some of the talk on Twitter of what that exchange looked like. I mean, that was it's going to be tough on the club level. It's going to be tough to beat that as a potential fight of the year. I'll say that in closing.
Yeah, it was. It just seemed like Jongo came in and the game plan was him or me. He's like, I'm not boxing. I'm not going to try to box. There is not going to be any hint that there's boxing going on. I'm going to knock him out. He's going to knock me out, or I'm getting disqualified here. That is, I think, the perfect way to describe that fight. And also, one other thing about the clock. After the referee waved it off, the clock was still going. Because, I don't know, for me, it felt kind of weird watching it on mute. It felt like the fight, like the referee wasn't sure if he really meant to stop the fight or not. Because Jongo did get up again. After he'd already gotten up and fell back down. He got up again. The referee looked like he was considering, being like, never mind, keep going.
Right. Yeah. Which would have, as we've talked about in previous episodes, would not be now out of the ordinary, as we've learned in some countries. And I would definitely put Tanzania in that bucket where the ref, it wouldn't be far out of the ref's reach to say, yeah, you know what? This has been fun. Let's keep the party rocking and we'll just keep fighting. But hey, I got to say, shout out to my friend Tyler on our Discord. And if you haven't joined our Discord, we're just starting to get started. So we'd love to have you come in and talk about these types of fights. Because when this fight ended, I had to get this line in there. I said, this thing's free on Fight TV, so it'll be archived and be available for us to see, for forever. And his reply was, dude, it must be saved forever because when we were all dead and gone, the aliens will find it and they will know what a great race we were and that God's power will be the God that they shall worship. It was just, I couldn't agree more, man. It was a great fight. Awesome stuff.
I've like Duradola is a guy that I've always like kind of kept an eye on because you just never know when you have a guy that's like a threat to sleep absolutely everyone they're in the ring with, and he's one of those guys. All right, was there anything else this weekend that we made? I heard that Artur Szpilka was back and he got blitzed.
Yeah, I was hoping to finish this section every week going forward with just like a 2 to 3 minute, almost like letting your hands go. Maybe mentioned a handful of fights and no more than like 30 or 45-second clips. I'll have some links in the show notes if you want to learn more. But let me just run through three more fights here in the next 2 minutes or so. So yeah, like you said, Artur Szpilka, 24-5, came in. Most everyone listening to the show, if not everyone, will know that heavyweight name. It was a Polish grudge match on pay-per-view against Lukas Rosinski, 14-0, 13 knockouts. Szpilka dropped him 7 seconds into the first round, but then roars back in the first round, knocks Szpilka down 3 times for a KO1. Szpilka needed help going back to his corner, and it was a fantastic first round knockout. Really high entertainment value, worth my $4.85 US that I paid to watch that on Sunday. And you know what? I'm just going to say it. I don't think Szpilka's a very nice guy.
Really?
I don't care. I don't care for the guy. Gave a really big boxing fan on Twitter got up in his face at a live event and spit in his face. Just a cowardly move for a heavyweight fighter. I don't care what a fan says to you. When you're a heavyweight boxer, just fucking walk away. Jesus, that guy. I've got no respect for that guy. I wish I'm glad he got knocked out. That's all I'm going to say to that.
If
the next one.
All right, never mind. We don't need to get into that.
Oh my God, ridiculous. All right, so the next one, believe it or not, 2 Massachusetts-based fighters fought in Dominican Republic on Saturday. Off BoxRec, I don't even know if it's on there yet, but heavyweight James Torney, not to be confused with James Toney, Massachusetts-based heavyweight James Torney got a KO1, as did Frank the Tank Hogan, middleweight fighter out of Massachusetts. Both fighting out of the same promotion. Have some BoxRec links out of there. I just stumbled across those without even knowing it. So if it's still not on BoxRec, at least you have the fighters BoxRec link, so you know who I'm talking about. And then
James Toney, interesting fighter we got here.
Yeah, he's a big guy, really big guy.
6'9". Wow. Okay. 6'9". Wow. How did they? Oh my God, he fought it. All right, this is hell of a rabbit hole here.
No, it's not on BoxRec yet. Yeah, I saw him at Big Punch here in February, and that's why I noticed him. And then this show in Derry, New Hampshire.
Hogan looks like an extra in Stranger Things.
Yeah. Frank's, I think, 19 or 20. He's a young kid. He's got good power. I think he's 6-0, 6 knockouts. He's got some development to do, but he'll be a fun one to keep an eye on. He'll stay busy in the Northeast too, so that'll be good.
This dude's out here fighting in New Hampshire?
Yep. Both guys. Couple of big promoters out in New Hampshire. Obviously Boston Boxing does stuff there. Granite Chin Promotions is really active out in New Hampshire. A lot of club boxing out that way.
Okay. Moving on to the next one.
Last one is heavyweights, a rematch. Gonzalo El Chalito Lopez Rodriguez, 2-5-2, who many moons ago, this was a heavyweight fight, as I mentioned. I think Rodriguez is about 250. Many moons ago down at Big Punch, he did fight Devin Haney at junior lightweight. I can't imagine
Whoa.
Rodriguez is going to be back at junior lightweight anytime soon.
Whoa.
Yeah, he fought Devin Haney as a junior lightweight.
And he's now fighting this weekend at
So
heavyweight.
he fought this past weekend at heavyweight. Yep.
Wow.
And it was one of the it was a tweet or a picture you'll remember if you're listening to the show, because their first fight, like I said, this was a rematch. He fought Richard Chachita Ivan Flores, who and they fought to a draw. Their first fight was on Whoop Dat Ass Promotions by my man hype man Repo Rick, just about a month ago. So this rematch went down, and they again fought to a draw, 38-38 times 2 and 37-39 for Chachita, which only sets up the trilogy here at some point. And Hype Man was all over Big Punch this weekend. I've got an awesome link in.
Yeah, he shouted you out.
I got an awesome. Yeah, he shouted me out. Hype Man Repo Rick did, and shout out to my man Chris Lovejoy too. But there's a great link. Repo Rick does an awesome job of getting everybody excited. There's a great link in the show notes of him firing people up. So take a look at that. Chance.
Wait,
so that was it.
Is Gonzalo Rodriguez one of the fighters at heavyweight, or that Devin Haney fought in Mexico that they paid for it to be a win? I'm just kidding, guys. I'm just kidding. Know. Just kidding.
Is that, yeah, I don't know.
Just spreading or adding fuel to the fire of these rumors that we have. Okay, just kidding.
Yeah, that's not on my wavelength. That went right over my head.
Anything? Oh, there's like this. There were whispers in boxing that Devin Haney had a loss down in Mexico that was overturned into a win because somebody delivered some money. I feel like Devin Haney, even when he was like 15 years old, was not losing down in Mexico. He was losing a Big Punch fight.
Like if you're listening to the show for the first time, we've gone over this in a previous show, and spoiler alert or teaser, we're gonna dive even deeper in it with a very, very, very special guest here in about 2 episodes from now. But yeah, like you said, someone of Devin Haney's pedigree going to fight on a debutante in Mexico, believe me, no money needed to be exchanged in the disparity and skill level in that fight, even if Haney was 1-0, 2-0, believe me.
Right. I mean, Haney is like an extraordinarily talented fighter compared to, with no disrespect, but compared to like a Chachita Flores here. I think there's a world of difference there with the talent. Anyway, was there anything you spotted this weekend that might have been like a little off and maybe a little kind of like, whoa, okay, that's not what you see when you tune into ESPN or Fox?
There was one little nugget, and take a look at it in the notes, but I hate to even bring it up because in a lot of the countries that we see around the world, folks are fighting in conditions that are not up to standards like we see in most of the rest of the world, and typically due to resources not being available, right? Funds and things of that nature. I think I tweeted a picture or a video of fighters literally falling through a ring in Malawi about a year ago. And then all the Malawi boxing fans, which I didn't even know were
going through the ring spot. I've seen it many times in WWE.
Well, it turns out there are Malawi boxing fans on Twitter. I didn't realize it, but they came after me saying, that's not Malawi. That's not the language of Malawi. I said, listen, man, I got it off of the Malawi boxing website and gave the man credit. So I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you.
So,
but anyway,
did you ever find out where that was from then?
No, I didn't.
Oh, if those geniuses wanted to say that it wasn't, they should have had an answer.
Yeah, well.
Well, I'll have to find a way to rile them up and get them against you again.
The Malawi boxing contingent. Well, I hate to, like I said, I mean, it's a fine line to walk, but there was a clip to take a look at, a picture to look at from Chiapas, Mexico on Friday night. that even caused me to go back and research how much ring cushion is legal or even required in a ring between the canvas and the underside of the ring, whether it be wood or metal. Because the picture I have on my timeline in Chiapas from Friday night, it doesn't look like there's any ring cushion. Like the best I can tell, it's just a tarp laying on a metal floor. So I guess my takeaway is that's not a ring you'd probably want to get knocked out in as a club level fighter with some U.S. fighters coming down south of the border to give you a loss. Unfortunately, yeah.
I mean, just think about that. Like, guys get knocked out. Their heads occasionally bounce off the canvas. You probably don't want to have your head bouncing off of like a steel grate. So.
No, you don't. And all joking aside, and I've said this openly and publicly on Twitter, I love to watch these shows. I'm just one person with a small Twitter following, but I try to give some of these guys more credit because some of the things I see around the world, and you all see it too that are listening, from Mexico to Ghana to Tanzania, to a lot of all these countries that we've talked about here over the first number of episodes, these guys are training in conditions and training without, sponsors in within conditions that a lot of other people would just walk away from, and they train their asses off. And I got to tell you, most of these guys are in hell of a shape when they fight. I know we've kind of put a spotlight on some in Mexico lately that haven't been, but for the most part, a lot of these guys are going long rounds. And I just have a lot of respect for what they do, because I know if I were in their situation, I probably would have walked away, just knowing me. And that's what gives me the fire to at least put a little tiny spotlight on some of them, and hopefully they appreciate it. So anyway, that's it for that. And but hopefully everyone stays safe in Chiapas going forward. Oh, as it turns out, and you'd know better than me, but I guess like half an inch to an inch is standard for the cushion, the mat in between the canvas and the apron.
Well, I mean, as a professional wrestler, we go with 1/4 of an inch.
Make it hurt a little more.
I'm just kidding, guys. It's bigger than that, but I am a professional wrestler. I was one of the masked people in Lucha Underground. I'm kidding.
I love it.
Anyway, which Lucha Underground would 100% be like up your alley, Tim.
Yeah, I'm not even familiar. I don't even know what you're talking about.
It's like club. It's got a club wrestling vibe to it, but like realistically, the wrestling equivalent to what you watch is probably like backyard wrestling.
Okay, fair play.
Anyway, what do we got coming up this week? I saw some names here, and I was like, no, he did not put this name on here.
Really?
Yeah.
Really, that surprised you. So this might be the biggest fight, most notable fight, most well-matched fight, probably going to end up being the most exciting fight across the world on any level this weekend.
Oh, and he's taking a shot at Floyd Mayweather.
Well, I'll watch that, of course, but I just think, I watch this stuff too, like, because it'll only be broadcast in Russia. And the fight I'm talking about, of course, is Fedor Chudinov versus Rhino Leibenberg. And it'll be Friday afternoon in St. Petersburg, Russia, live on Bets or Match TV. I have the Box Rec link here. I've got the Stanza link that will provide a link to watch the fight live. A deep undercard will probably come on really early in the U.S. Eastern time, probably 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. And then I would bet you Chudinov and Leibenberg go on probably 2-ish U.S. Eastern Standard Time, Eastern Daylight Time. And I'm sure, like you said, everybody listening is probably familiar. Chudinov at this point, 23-2-1, 16 knockouts, been around forever. He's 32 now, and honestly held every version of a WBA title for about the last 12 years, I think, that can be created or has been created. And this one is for his WBA gold title. If you're not familiar with, it's very prestigious. If you're not familiar with Chudinov, probably best known for beating Felix Sturm back in 2012, or excuse me, 2015.
I remember
and then
this.
immediately losing his title back to Sturm, whatever title he grabbed. And I think it was some form of a legitimate WBA title. And I know know that I'm doing air quotes when I say legitimate in WBA. It was regular or world or whatever. I don't really care, but it was one of the main WBA world titles. This gold one is not that they're fighting for
Well, you're
now.
leaving off the fact that after he beat Sturm, he fought Frank Buglioni in what was the one of the most easy money bets in the history of boxing.
Yep.
Like anybody who had a brain knew, like, oh, Buglioni has zero shot in this fight.
Yep. No, fair. That's fair. I did skip right over that. And some of my friends on Twitter, like you said, a lot of betting people, people that either run sites or bet consistently follow me, and we message. And there's very rarely that unicorn that comes across, maybe one or two or three a year, where you just know, like, you can't put enough money on the fight, and that was definitely
The
one of
bookies have
those.
it wrong. Ruin Wrong
Yeah,
versus Zhu Shiming. That was like free money.
yeah, yeah. Well, you know, actually, hold that thought because the last thing I want to mention about Chudinov is which kind of an interesting little nugget too. His last fight, when you look at his box rec, he fought and most. Oh, I watched this fight here not too long ago against Isaac Chilemba, which I personally felt, and this was interesting because the fight was a draw, but and it was in Russia, and I thought Chudinov clearly won the fight, but it was such a dreadful fight to watch. I think I fell asleep like two or three times, so maybe I was way off. But I remember people messaging me some going, "Is this another like draw that Chilemba like clearly won and they just gave it to Chudinov?" And I'm like, no. I mean, it was kind of shocking to me because I thought Chudinov clearly won the fight, and in Russia, I don't know how they gave Chilemba a draw. Um, I think my memory's escaping me, but I think there was some promotional tie to it. Plus, Roy Jones Jr., I want to say, was Chilemba's trainer for this fight. And as everyone knows, Roy Jones Jr., in fact, is a Russian citizen and is held in esteem standard in Russia, esteem level, God level in Russia. So that might have played an influence on things too. I don't know, but that was a weird little nugget. Okay, now let's get to Rhino because this man, talk about a fight where you just, if you knew boxing, that you could have put your house mortgage on this fight and won 100, whatever. Rhino Liebenberg is fighting Chudinov in this fight. He's a 37-year-old South African, 21-7-1. And in his last fight, I mean, Liebenberg has held a whole variety of world titles on a regional level, if that makes sense. The intercontinental ones, silver, regional stuff like that. And just in his last fight, actually became the South African super middleweight title. He did fight for an IBO world title, legitimate world title, if you consider the IBO a legitimate belt, and lost that one here a number of years ago.
Against
But
Thomas
his
Woesteisen.
Woesteisen, I don't remember seeing Thomas Woesteisen
He
fight.
fought on HBO before too. I think it's
I
Jonathan
don't remember that.
Gonzalez.
There you go. That was a name I didn't that didn't ring a bell for me for whatever
Oh,
reason.
sorry, it was Brandon Gonzalez. I got it wrong.
Oh, the Gonzaleses run together after a while. All right, so dude, the last fight Liebenberg fought was absolutely brutal. Like, he was matched on a massive step up fight for his opponent, who's undefeated Roland Campbell at 12-0, who's getting some serious push on the national stage in South Africa. And I walked away after watching that fight thinking like three things. One, that Liebenberg is one of the hardest men I have ever seen step into boxing ring. Number two, I don't know why they didn't stop this fight after about the fifth round, because Liebenberg was beating the living shit out of Campbell. And anybody that would have made a quick message to pretty decent South African boxing contingent on, Facebook, Twitter, what have you, they would have told you bet the farm on Liebenberg because that guy is one hard man. And number three, I was just really concerned with Campbell because this was a guy he was being groomed to move on to a next step in his career at super middleweight at 12-0, young guy, just south of 30, if I'm not mistaken. And I just genuinely don't think he'll ever be the same fighter again if he even fights again. I hope he comes back, but Liebenberg just beat the living snot out of him. So when I saw this fight being made, even in Russia, I was like, holy shit, like this is going to be one hell of a fight. And it's going to be on Bets Live. There's an outside shot that it turns up on YouTube on the Russian Boxing Federation, which would be a great way to see it. And if it is, it'll be in that link that's in the show notes. But overall, I think this is going to be a fantastic fight. I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, Leibenberg is a guy that has been around for a really long time. He first came onto my radar when he fought Grashev.
Mm-hmm.
Grashev, I assume that's
Dennis Grashev,
which was like in 2014 maybe.
Yep, that sounds right.
And yeah, but I don't think Leibenberg is anything other than a really, really tough guy. So it'll be interesting to see. Chudinov is like one of those guys. I remember him as a prospect. It's like he looked like he had everything going for him. Him and it's his brother, right? Dmitry.
Yep, brothers. Yep.
And Dmitry is not as good as Fedor, and Fedor's all right. But this is an interesting matchup featuring two guys that have been around forever.
When you look at Leibenberg's picture on BoxRec, it kind of sums up everything I just said in one picture about his last fight with Roland Campbell. I mean, just look at that picture.
Bad guy in an early 90s movie.
Oh my God. That man, Chudinov is going to have to stay the hell away from him and realize he's not going to knock him out. And now, Leibenberg's been on the canvas. He's been stopped. So it's not unheard of. But, I think Leibenberg, if I'm, on his team, I tell him to take this exact same approach he did with Roland Campbell. I mean, you might as well just kind of go for the jugular on Chudinov here and just try to walk through his fire and put an end to him. But, yeah, you mentioned Dennis Grachev that Leibenberg beat back in 2014. Grachev's still fighting, and you know where Grachev has fought, right? Just last year in February, he fought at Big Punch.
Oh, he did?
Yeah. There isn't that long of a string or dots to connect to get back to Big Punch Arena when you look through BoxRec.
Yeah, because I know he fought on a PBC card. He was off TV against against Marcus Brown.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, went full 10 rounds.
This was actually we're in June. Never mind. I keep thinking we're in May, and I was gonna say this is only a couple of weeks ago, but then I looked at the date and I was like, oh wow, we're already in June.
And Grachev was Chad Dawson's comeback fight. When Dawson came back in 2019. Well, his second comeback fight. But anyway, now we're getting really deep in the rabbit hole.
Okay.
Are you gonna watch this fight?
If it's good, if you tell me that it's a good fight, I'll probably watch it. Otherwise, probably not.
Yeah, no, that's I understand. It may or may not be the easiest fight to see, that too, which is kind of disappointing, but we'll hope for the best on it showing up on YouTube.
Man, I remember Edwin Rodriguez fought Grashev on one of those Monaco cards, and that was when we knew Edwin just bombed him out in one round. Grashev is supposed to be a good fighter. And it's like, nah. Grashev really doesn't have it.
Totally.
Anyway, what else have we got this weekend? I know Big Punch is trotting out 45 guys making their pro debut this weekend.
Yeah, so I wanted, kind of like we did in the section up top with reviewing last week, I wanted to just add like a quick hits section, fast hands at the end of the podcast to highlight 3 or 4 cards that are coming up, all within maybe 60 seconds on each card, so I don't bog things down. But everything I'm going to run through here if I'm going through it quick, we'll have links. So don't worry. You could just scroll down and see what you want to see. But there's four of them I wanted to mention to you here quick as we wrap things up. Number one, Friday night, the Eye of the Tiger management, based out of Montreal, is running a show in Mexico. I think this is their second or third time dipping down into Mexico, if not longer. But some, three pretty popular names fighting down on the show in Mexico City. David Lemieux, everyone knows David Lemieux. He'll be back in action. Eric Bazinian, 25-0 super middleweight. I've only seen him a couple of times. He's kind of one that slid through my. I have a gap in my viewing, and he's someone that's kind of slipped through me. So I'll be interested to see him. And I also like Simon Keane, big, huge heavyweight, 19-1. I'm a fan of his. So some pretty good names. It's a little expensive. It's $20 on Fight TV. And if you're a quarterly subscriber to Punching Grace, which is their promotional outfits quarterly subscription platform, you can see it there too. So there's one.
Simon Keane
should be pretty.
Remember, he was the guy that one of the guys that Tyson Fury was rumored to be fighting when he was trying to make that comeback in last December.
Yep. Yeah, he was. And there was a couple of names. Gosh, there's another one that we're going to end up talking about if we haven't already, and his name's escaping me. But anyway, yeah, there were some really odd names thrown in that discussion last December. But Simon Keane at least is a really big heavyweight, so that made sense to some degree, especially as a comeback or kind of a stay busy fight, whatever you want to call it. All right, so number two, you mentioned it. Just real quick, I'll mention we've got a doubleheader Saturday at Big Punch live on Facebook. Back-to-back cards. One will kick off kind of mid afternoon in the East Coast U.S. time, and then one in the evening. A total of 30 fights at Big Punch live on Facebook on Saturday. Both cards have 15 fights, and they're going to roll them out back to back. So there'll be fights going on all day. My wife, God bless her heart, promises me we're going to Big Punch here at some point. I'm going to go down and just kind of keep a low profile, but I told her we got to go on a day when there's a Thursday night card, a Friday night card, and then we get that Saturday 30 bout card. And we'll just set up a tent outside of Big Punch or something and see like 60 fights. It'll be amazing.
If you go and you're there Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, I guarantee by Saturday you'll be one of them people in the ring.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said to Beto last weekend, they'll have me fighting some 15-year-old or something. So
I mean,
all right, so that's
your wife might be fighting too. You bring your kids there; they'll make their pro debuts. I mean, anyone that's there with you, they might wind up in the ring.
I'll be off TV. Yeah, that way I at least have my name on BoxRec. That'd be pretty cool. All right, so number three, we've got Ajit Kabayel. Almost everyone listening to the show will probably have heard that name one time or another. 20-0 takes on Kevin Kingpin Johnson, 35-17-1, as Kingpin goes for his second straight win in Germany. Right now, all I've been able to unearth is that this is live on MDR, German channel. I've got the link there. You can click on it and watch it with a VPN. There'll probably be some other options that I'll keep that updated too. Kabayel is probably best known for a majority decision over Derek Chisora back in 2017. And also, maybe this is what I was thinking of a minute ago. He was signed. I had a note down here, a rumor to also fight Fury.
Yeah.
Here this past winter. That's I think who I was thinking of. Yeah. Sorry, it was right ahead of me. Yep. So that should be a pretty interesting fight. We were talking a little bit before the show. I mean, credit to Kevin Johnson, man. You may not like his style. Sometimes it seems like he doesn't really try in the ring, right? But there is not a heavyweight in the past 15 years that this guy hasn't fought. And it's not like he's running around the ring. I mean, he just goes in there and stands and, either takes shots or lays on the rope and, puts his hands up and just eats them. I mean, he's fought everyone. There isn't anyone he hasn't fought.
That is what I remember Kevin Johnson for, is laying on the ropes.
Yep, unfortunately.
But
There isn't a
typically,
heavyweight
I've seen
name.
him fight guys that are very, very good. You've seen him fight guys that are not so good. I don't
Yeah,
think I've
like
ever seen Kevin Johnson win a fight.
yeah. I mean, I didn't think he was ever going to win a fight again until his last fight, and he shocked everybody, including the returning cruiserweight world champion Juan Pablo Hernandez, who he actually knocked out. And Hernandez did not look good in good shape in that fight. But Kingpin smelled blood in the water, and it's like, this is my shot. All these losses, I could knock this dude out, and he did it. So
Literally the
that'll
best one
be
of his
on.
career.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, Saturday in Germany. All right, so last one, real quick, double header. Another cool double header in Philly, and this will be on pay-per-view. They're $15 a piece for an afternoon card and an evening card on Boxing TV pay-per-view, and both cards are full with young prospects out of the Northeast, specifically kind of New Jersey, Philadelphia area, and this is a show being promoted by King's Promotions, who's been pretty active out in that area. Also down in Houston, Marshall Kaufman's the promoter, and there's some good prospects on these shows. And
They've had a
I've
lot of
been
their
really,
prospects also featured on PBC.
yeah, they graduate, right?
Yeah, I guess it's a good way to put it. They do graduate their guys.
Yeah, they do good shows. Like I've mentioned on the past, this Boxing TV pay-per-view platform in general, and I've mentioned I think Mark Abrams is kind of tied into it and does broadcasting, and they've typically had some pretty high-level fighters doing color commentary from Willie Nelson to Boots Ennis, and it's just overall good production. I think it's worth $15 and get to see some nice young guys fight. I think going forward here in the future, Angelo, this year we'll have some of their prospects join us and tell us about their upcoming fights, because I've really got good entertainment with those. So we've got those on Sunday. If you want to dip into the club level, that would be a good one for you to go, and you're going to get a good solid stream transmitted to you for your $15. It'll be good quality stuff. So
There's a guy on the
big
card.
weekend.
His name is Greg Outlaw, and his nickname is Sharpshooter. So
Yeah,
he's living the gimmick
Greg the
there.
Sharpshooter Outlaw. Yeah, I love it. And the headliner on that same show is Devar Farhadi, and he's based out of Maryland, but his ethnicity is Iraqi, and he's 8-0 with 7 knockouts. I saw his last fight. Pretty nice little fighter. He's headlining this card. I can't remember if this one's the afternoon or evening one, but he'd be a good one. And then a little bit down further, Joseph Jackson, 16-0. A little bit older, but 12 knockouts. I think he's 32. But yeah. Anytime they go out there in Philly with Boxing TV, it's been enjoyable. Be good shows.
All right. Nothing else?
I think that's it, man.
I mean, this was like kind of like a, little decent weekend, but then you factor in Big Punch doing 30 fights, and it's like, oh, actually, there's a lot to take in this weekend.
Yeah, totally. Big Punch has got 30 on the same day. Boxing TV is going to have, 24 to 25 fights, right? I got Germany to keep an eye on. The Chudinoff show will kind of kick off in the morning. Saturday is going to be really, really busy. So that'll be awesome.
All right. Well, you've got your work cut out for you this weekend. Tim, thanks so much for another episode where you take us into the world of club boxing. If you like the podcast, there are a couple of things you could do. You could give it a good rating, you could give it a good review, and you can share it. Tim, if anybody wanted to know when are these fights coming out, what should they do?
Yeah. So super easy. If you want to just bookmark a page, you can. Or you can go and subscribe to this calendar. It'll feed right into your mobile phone or your mobile calendar. But if that's too much for you, you can just bookmark the page. I get it. You don't want 8 million things in your calendar. And I put every club show in the world that's going to stream live into this calendar. So if you want to just bookmark it, you're not going to hurt my feelings. You can go to stanza.co, stanza.co, and then / at Hock, HOCK 1717.
And
that's stanza.co / Hock 1717. And I've got that link in all my social media, profiles, so you can find it there too.
And I just wanted to make sure that you're following Tim Boxeo on Twitter. Pretty simple, Tim Boxeo, where in his bio, you'll see the link to a link that'll take you to a list of a bunch of links, which include the Tim Boxeo store where you can get your shirts. Tim showed me potentially, I think, a future shirt coming out. That's very, very cool. A link to the Discord so you can get more direct access into a chat. The Stanza calendar podcast, obviously you probably don't need that link since you're here. You found your way. But yeah, there's a bunch of links over there. Tim, any final thoughts from this week?
Thank you so much to everybody that's listened. We've got great feedback on the show. If you'd like to see us do something different, more or less, please hit up either me or Angelo anywhere that you see us in the stratosphere so we can make those changes. But just really appreciate everybody listening. And thanks for those that have taken the time to rate the show. It really means a lot. I really, really appreciate it. Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, and you should also, if you this is the first time, we didn't talk too much about Big Punch this week. I guess we kind of did. But last week we did an interview with Beto Duran, who has covered boxing for years and years. And he went down to Big Punch and actually came on the podcast and talked about his experience there and whether or not it was everything that we thought it was, including if they asked him to fight or not. And he answered all those questions. He talked about it. It was a lot of fun. I'd highly recommend you go back and listen to that episode if you haven't. And I think going forward, we are going to be having interviews here where we're going to talk to fighters, we're going to talk to promoters, and really just kind of like get you into the world that they are, they're part of the world, which is club boxing. So I hope you guys look forward to that. We will be back next week with yet another episode where we preview Rhino Liebenberg, or no, we recap. Is it Rhino or Reno?
To me, it's Rhino.
I've always wondered that.
I don't know what it is.
I've always wondered that because, if you say it with an accent, but Rhino Liebenberg and Fedor Chudinov, a fight that you should be looking forward to. But anyway, thanks a lot for listening, guys. We'll be back next week.